Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first installment of the Live Well Career Prep Series. My name is Jasmine Guerrero. I am a Youth Sector Coordinator with the Live Well San Diego Sector Engagement Team. My co-lead, Maya, and I are very excited to be moderating today's discussion. And the objectives for today's webinar are for you all to learn about different career paths and departments, as well as to listen to staff advice on how to pursue a county career. We will also be going over Q&A for career-related questions, and then lastly, learn about different career development opportunities and events that will be coming up very soon. And for today, we are joined by an amazing group of panelists who are all eager to share their insights and experiences with all of you. And our aim is to provide you with valuable advice and information to help you navigate your own career choices. So I'll now pass it over to our panelists to have them introduce themselves, and we'll be starting off with Annika.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Annika Manlutak. I am an Administrative Analyst 1 on the Behavioral Health Services Department, specifically the Communication and Engagement team. A fun fact about me is that I am an avid D&D player, so hopefully that resonates with some of y'all. And so my boyfriend actually recently got a resin 3D printing machine, and so through that I've gotten to paint a couple of miniatures and have found out I'm decently good at it. So that's me.
Thank you, Annika. Next, we have Victor.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Victor Reese, pronouns he, him, his. I'm a health promotion specialist for the County of San Diego's Office of Border Health. A fun fact about me is that I'm also a musician. I've been a drummer since I was 13 years old. I've played professionally in the past and also toured during my early 20s. I'm on my 30s now, but yeah, that's a fun fact from me. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Victor. And then Julia.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Julia Diaz. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I currently serve as the Internship and Clinical Supervision Coordinator at the Child and Family Wellbeing Department. And the fun fact about me is I'm a huge advocate for working with families with children on the spectrum. My son is autistic, and so I love supporting other families who have children who are also autistic with education and early intervention education.
Thank you, Julia. And then next up, we have Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Garlejo, and I am a Community Health Promotion Specialist 2 with the Department of Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities in the Office of Equitable Communities. A couple of fun facts about me is that I'm a San Diego native, a first-gen college graduate, and I also grew up in a multi-generational Filipino household.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And lastly, we have Fernanda.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Fernanda Lopez. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Group Communications Officer for the Health and Human Services Agency. And a fun fact about me is that I actually played the violin in a mariachi band for 5 years throughout college, and it actually helped me pay for my education. So I'm really excited to chat with you all today.
Thank you, everyone. So as you can see, we have a great group with us today. We do have a jam-packed agenda, so we're just going to dive right in. And for our first discussion question, I'll be asking Sarah and Fernanda, what does a typical work-life day look like for you?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that. So one of my favorite parts of this job is that there is no true typical day. So generally on a day where there's no big meetings or presentations or outreach events, I try to start the morning by catching up, reading and responding to emails and messages, checking in with the students that I supervise, and then creating a task or to-do list for the day. I try to do any creative work later in the morning when I can, whether that's brainstorming new social media content or adding content to our newsletter, since that's kind of when I'm most energized. And then there will be meetings sprinkled throughout the day. Some might be in person or virtual. So the days usually go by fast. And then I usually spend the remainder of the day focused on work, like strategic planning, social media content planning, putting together presentations, or collaborating with schools and community partners. So there's no 2 days that are the same, which is what makes it so fun and fulfilling. And I'll pass it over to Fernanda.
Thanks, Sarah. I think very similarly to Sarah, what I really enjoy about my job is that there is a lot of variety. I come from a news background where as a TV news reporter, I would cover a different story every day. So you could be covering politics one day and the environment the next day. So in my current role, what I really like is that I get to work with all of the departments. So that means that every day really is very different. So I could be, meeting with a department, talking about some communication needs that they have. I could be getting an urgent call or email or text message from a reporter asking for an interview or information on a different topic. Other than that, I'm filling my days with creating content for social media or writing for County News Center or answering questions from the media, organizing some of our communications plans. So yeah, very similarly to Sarah, what I really enjoy is that every day can look very different. And there are some days where I'm out in the field talking with people too. And I think I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but really enjoying the variety.
Thank you both, Sarah and Fernanda. I think that's one of the most exciting things is that no day looks the same and it just keeps you on your toes. But for our next question, we'll be asking Annika, Victor, and Julia, what has been your education and career experience that has led you to your career today?
Thank you so much, Jasmine. So I think it's really important for me to start off with responding, saying that I am not where I am today purely out of planning, at least as far as like coming from undergrad. A lot of my path was very much filled with what I call the mid-undergrad crisis, where I wanted to do one thing and then I was like, no, I'm going to do this. But to kind of paint a more clear picture, I did receive my bachelor's in cognitive and behavioral neuroscience. So as you can see, it does kind of have a connection to behavioral health services. So I got lucky with that, but it definitely was not a straight path for me. I actually ended up graduating a year early on accident. So I did not know what I was going to do after graduating college. And it also so happened to be that I graduated 2020, which was when quarantine happened. But with that, I actually got the opportunity to contribute to the COVID-19 response. And so I was like, if I don't have plans for myself, I might as well do something for the community. And so I became a case investigator with Public Health Services and did that for about 6 months until I was transferred over to the Live Well San Diego team, where our host Jasmine and Maya are from, and participated in vaccination equity efforts. And when COVID started to kind of settle down, I did work on some sector items until finally landing myself here in behavioral health services. So just wanted to reassure everyone that if your path is a little wonky right now, it's not super clear, please don't think that that's the end of it. I definitely thought it was for me, but I would say that I welcomed all these different journeys because it did let me get to where I am today. And so with that, I can pass it on to Victor.
Thank you, Annika. And yes, I have to agree with what Annika shared with you, because same thing. It has not been a linear process that you go out of high school to college and then from college directly into the workplace. From my end, I studied and lived in Tijuana all my life. And when I was on my later years of high school, I know that I wanted to do some work in the healthcare field and also working with community. So I started volunteering at a binational trip that is organized by 3 colleges, by San Diego State University, by UCSD, and by the Autonomous University of Baja California, because that's where I wanted to study at the UABC. And I studied psychology at UABC, and once I graduated, I decided that I wanted to start working in the US. And then I realized that there were many barriers for me to enter the workforce, and I never had any guidance as to what to do. So it was very difficult finding a way for myself. I continued to do community work throughout college. I was now an official part of this trip, the VDI trip. And from there, I started working in the public health field as a community health worker. So I started that path, working with indigenous communities, also on the Mexican side, eventually working with Native Americans on the US side at the community clinic. And then COVID hit, right? And then everything just took another shift. And that's how eventually, by doing vaccine scheduling assistance, contact tracing, that's how I moved into the county. So one thing really led to another, and I guess to wrap up, what I wanted to share is that yes, it's not a linear process, but at the same time, you have to trust the process, and eventually the work that you're doing is going to lead you towards what do you want to achieve as well. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with all of you.
So for me, I graduated. I'm a San Diego native. I've lived here my whole life. I graduated with a bachelor's degree. When I turned 18, I decided I wanted to move away to LA County, just to get away from San Diego County. I'm a first generation in my family member to go to college, in my family to go to college. So for me, it was like a huge thing. And I just wanted to be independent. I wanted to get away. So I graduated in 2006 with a bachelor's degree in child and family development. I honestly, this is the same as Victor and Annika. My path wasn't a straight line. I wanted to go into pre-med. I always thought that I wanted to get into medicine, but I found out once I went to college, I was over my head. I couldn't really handle all the sciences and everything, and I felt defeated. But I ended up taking a psychology class and a family development class, and it just something that really connected with me. And it just got me thinking back to the whole like idea of why I originally wanted to go into pre-med was to help people. And so I thought, well, there can be another path for me of helping people that maybe doesn't involve medicine. So I graduated in 2006, and upon graduation, I struggled a little bit trying to still find myself and what I wanted to do. Most people with a degree in child family development go into teaching. I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't have the patience for teaching. And I give so much respect to teachers, but I just knew that wasn't something that I could handle. So I found myself working at a residential facility for children who had been placed in the facility due to extreme behaviors. And it was really eye-opening for me. I ended up slowly transitioning to another position as a case manager who did parenting services with families who had open cases with child, well, historically known as Child Protective Services, but now we're known as Child and Family Wellbeing Department. But it kind of sparked my interest working with the kids at the residential facility, and then as a case manager working with families who had open cases, and just wondering like, how did they get here, and what can I do maybe to get to the forefront of helping prevent families and children from ending up in a residential facility or families from having cases open. And I started talking a little bit more to the social workers that I was working with, who had the families assigned to them at Child and Family Wellbeing Department. And a lot of them were saying, well, did you know you could go back to school and get your master's in social work for free? You just would have to come work with us for 2 years after. So I said, wow, that sounds pretty amazing, and something I might be interested in doing. So that's what led me to go back for my master's, and I graduated with my master's in social work in 2010 with the stipend, which is known as a Title IV-E stipend, and it paid for my master's. And as a part of receiving that grant, you go to work for Child Protective Services for 2 years. And so that's what kind of led me to my agency today. And I had the goal of doing my 2-year payback and then leaving. But in February, I will have been here for 13 years. So I stayed a little longer than anticipated. But yeah, that's kind of how I found my path. And I think I tell everyone, I think social work found me because it's something that now I'm just so passionate about and I can't see my life without.
Yeah. Thank you so much all for sharing. I think everyone's path kind of shows that there's no perfect mold or path to go on. It's just figuring out what you're passionate about and pursuing that. So thanks all. For our next question, we do have Julia, Sarah, and Fernanda sharing on which skills are essential for success in their career, both hard and soft skills.
So I think for me, I would say that so with my department, I'm sure other county departments were really big on your Gallup strengths. It's a test that they have you take when you get hired. And it's something that I'm very strong, I feel very strongly about because I think it really speaks to your skills. So I really feel that different people will have a different answer for this particular question. But for me, myself, I'm someone who needs a lot of visual supports to function effectively. I have to have some kind of organization. So I feel like to be successful in our job, with Child and Family Wellbeing Department, you definitely have to have some kind of system for organization because you can be in any role, whether it's a role like mine or a role in investigations, which is what I had started off in the department of doing child abuse investigations. You're meeting certain timelines. You have to go out and meet with families within, sometimes it's immediate, 24 hours. Sometimes you have 10 days. You have to have your notes in. You have to make sure you have your court reports in. So I set a lot of visual reminders, whether it's like calendar reminders, making myself, I'm a list writer. I write a list like every day on my to-do list so I can just check off stuff. That kind of helps me stay on top of things. Definitely also you have to be a team player. You have to be willing to I think this is really essential too, especially in a job like mine, which does have it's very stress. It can come with a lot of stress. Being a team player means helping others around you when they're in crisis mode, because essentially when you're in crisis, they'll be willing to help you. So I think being a team player is such a big part also of our job. And then the other part of it is when you're dealing with such sensitive topics like abuse and things that are confidential, you can't just go share it with the world. So your coworkers are essentially your support network. So using them as like I mentioned, like a team is just so important. I think another great asset to have is flexibility, because with the county, the one thing I've learned is that things are always changing. Whether, like I said, like even our name, like when I first started, we were known as Child Protective Services. And then a few years later, it was Child Welfare Services. And now we're the Child and Family Wellbeing Department, which, as you could tell, I'm still struggling to say because it literally just changed like very recently. So being flexible, whether it's with policy changes, name rebranding, staff changes, people are promoting and moving, just having that flexibility is so key to being successful in a job like mine.
And then I'm just going to piggyback off of Julia. So I'm not in child and family well-being, but still work with the public. And especially as a public health professional and a community health promotion specialist, I would say some hard skills that would be essential for success in this career would be program planning skills, relationship building skills, and some type of data analytics and assessment skills. And that's something that we all learn as we get our public health degree. So I feel like it's not too hard to have those skills on hand already. And then some soft skills, you know, just having the ability to empathize and desire to help others, dependability, of course, as Julia said, communicating effectively, being really supportive of change. My office, the Office of Equitable Communities, our spirit animal is a palm tree. So we try, you know, to be as flexible and also with the teamwork and collaboration as well. And having just some open-mindedness and valuing and respecting others are some other soft skills.
I love that analogy about the palm tree. Thanks for sharing that. For me, so again, I work in a communications role. So I studied journalism in college and got my bachelor's degree in journalism. So writing, definitely a hard skill. Also some technical skills. I went into a broadcasting journalism role after college. So filming, video editing, photography, which are things that I still do in my job and are very valuable in my kind of role, but also critical thinking. And I think things that I've done as a journalist and in my current role in communications is that we're talking with the media all the time. So if I take things at face value, then I might not be communicating the county's story as efficiently as I could be, right? So really thinking about what's being asked of us and how we can respond to the media and communicate with them. So lots of critical thinking. And then some soft skills, I think being very open-minded, creative, and curious. I feel like I have questions all the time. So asking lots of questions, even as I'm getting questions from the media, asking them questions and what are you looking for and why are you looking for this? And working with our departments too, as I tell their stories and asking them questions, because I can't be an expert in behavioral health and homelessness and child, well-being. That's not what I studied and what I'm an expert in, but I have all of these resources in front of me. So I have to be really curious and think critically about what I'm hearing and open-minded so that I can write and film and take photos and tell their stories in the best way.
Thank you, everyone. I think we can see some similarities between everyone's positions, like communication, being able to be a team player, and also flexibility. But there's also some different skills that are very centered based off of your job occupation or even your department. So it's always important to take a look at what skills you might need for your specific career path. But for our next question, if I can have Victor and Annika share and tell us more about what they like most about their job and what are some challenges.
Yes, thank you, Jasmine. And first of all, what I like about my job is just being able to be out in the community. Doing community-based work throughout San Diego is something that I really enjoy because this position allows me also to develop connections with community leaders and community members, especially community-based organizations that represent multicultural communities. So being able to learn from their experience or the work that they do, learning from the culture, the different cultures that are located in San Diego County. I guess that's the part that is very rewarding from my end. Also, like I mentioned, developing these connections with the leaders. I mean, you just get to learn so much from them and their communities and how they're championing all these efforts to improve the health for their community members. Part of the background for all of you that in my role as a health promotion specialist, I'm also a program liaison for a program called the Partner Relay. And the Partner Relay is an initiative to improve the communication with limited English proficiency communities during natural disasters and public health emergencies. So we're trying to establish this big network of community-based organizations that are able to pass along the message whenever there's an emergency. And it is a very rewarding work. And I guess yeah, that's what I like the most, I guess, wrapping up, developing connections, being out in the community and learning about the different cultures in San Diego and the community members. I'll pass along the mic.
Thank you. So to kind of provide a little bit of context in my introduction, I did mention that I'm part of the communication and engagement team. And for those of you who may not know, because county structure can be a little bit confusing, especially even when you're in it, honestly. But BHS is like very large. We do cover a lot of like administrative things and like clinical things. So our team kind of helps to disseminate all that information to the community and engage with the community by sharing the many resources, services that we have. And that can be done through things like community events, creating like flyers, informational one-pagers, and just a lot of things. So with that said, I would say that interestingly enough, I do really like the feeling of being in the eye of the storm per se. So it's kind of like there's always a lot of chaos, for lack of a better word, happening because things are so dynamic. Behavioral health and honestly, like all health is very dynamic. It's ever changing because people's needs are changing. And so I really enjoy that because for me, like being in the center of it, like while it can at times be a little bit overwhelming, it does also give me a good vantage point, so to speak, of what the needs are in the community, where we might have gaps, where we're very strong in. And it also lets me kind of experience the kind of progressive nature of the county's approach towards wanting to provide services and wanting to reach out to people like with cultural competency in the lens and like wanting to expand to languages to make sure that we're communicating with people in their most comfortable environment. And so even though everything may be crazy my day to day, and sometimes I'm like, wow, I need a break, I need a vacation, I do really love that it gives me the opportunity to learn and like really echoing what Victor said about being able to engage with the community, being able to support them. With that said, like as I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges is keeping up with everything. And so like Julia had mentioned earlier, flexibility is really important. One of my top Gallup strength actually is adaptability. So that has definitely helped in being able to be responsive to the needs and being okay with change. So that's what I love about it.
Thank you both, Victor and Annika. I think, yeah, piggybacking off of that, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's an importance in growth and like being challenged in the workplace and finding those times, but also remembering to ask for help or even slowing down and really relying on your team, as we mentioned before, because things are always quickly changing here at the county. But for our last discussion question, I thought it'd be valuable for all of us to hear from all of our panelists that we have here today. So what career advice would you give to others who are interested in working at the county?
Go ahead and start us off. So as I mentioned during my first question, I believe I had a lot of changes. And to provide some context, to summarize, I had like 3 different positions in 3 different departments in 3 years. So it was a very, very fast-paced shift. But my main advice with the county is being open to opportunities, even if they're not immediately your dream job. The COVID-19 response was, I did not picture myself in public health. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know if I was going to get the job at the time. But I was like, I want to contribute to this. And so through that, I was able to build a lot of skills that ended up distinguishing me as someone to be hired later on in LiveWell, because I actually didn't apply to be moved. It was one of those, like, we need people to support in this pilot program. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, not something I like 100% know about, but I am very much willing to learn. So I think it's definitely important to understand the merit of growing your skill, even if it's daunting. being open to learn, being open to, like Jasmine mentioned, being challenged helps a lot more than, like a degree. Like I didn't have a degree in public health or like political science or anything that like would have given me an advantage in the county. But I do find that in my experience, I have been able to be equipped a lot more with like more relevant skills. And so I think, just to summarize, it's just take that leap, like if you're getting a good vibe from it, it's probably going to lead you somewhere good, and you're always going to learn something from anything that you do.
I kind of want to piggyback off of what Annika was saying. There's this quote that my deputy director actually shared with me, was bloom where you are planted. So, you might not want a certain position at this very moment, but if it's, if you're eligible and if it's something that kind of aligns with something, I would say just try it. Like you won't know until you try. And then, just some general things, if you're interested in working with the county, is, find your interest. If you're still in school, I would highly recommend trying to get an internship or a fellowship with the county, because it kind of gets your foot in the door. And then if you're already done with school and you have your degree or any certifications, just ensuring that when you're applying for the jobs on government jobs, the government jobs website, just ensure you have like the appropriate education and training, but also just demonstrating your commitment to service. And then one really big thing that that has always stuck with me, and I to this day still apply to myself, is get on any lists that you can on the government jobs website.
And I'll go next if that's okay. I love what you said, Sarah, about really thinking about your commitment to service. I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy about my job. I really feel like I'm in it, and I'm doing the thing that's helping the people, and sometimes more than other times. And just because of my role, right? And I think a lot of the times I get to work with people who are providing these incredible programs and services that I didn't even know existed. So I've only been with the county just over a year, and I'll fully admit that I'm still learning about all of the different types of positions that are out there, and so many types of jobs that are so specific. So just my advice, I'd say do what you're doing now. You're taking part of in a panel that you're learning about all the county jobs. Talk to people, connect with the panelists and anyone else that you can after this, so that you're just continuing to learn what's out there. I think when I was in school, my degree was journalism, so I'm going to be a journalist. So that made sense to me. But once that kind of changed, there's so many things that you don't know about the types of jobs that are open and available out there. And I think that's something that I'm still exploring. So even if you think that, I want to get into this, or you're studying something now, but you learn about something else that you're interested, follow those paths and see where they take you, because just being really passionate about what you do, I think can really take you a long way and help you find what you, where you fit best and where you'll bloom.
So I'll go next. Two things that I would give advice to anyone who's starting off with the county. The one thing I would say is just always be self-aware of your professionalism, especially when you're around coworkers, because you never know who your next boss is going to be. I always try to tell my interns and our new workers, like, literally my now supervisor went to grad school with me. I didn't know she was going to be my future boss, but that was one of the ways like I was able to get this position, because she knew me as a grad student. And even though the county's huge, it is also very small, and everyone knows everyone, and you're always constantly like crossing paths with other departments. So just always try to have the best reputation possible. Don't ever burn bridges. Keep those networks, because it literally will help you I think thrive at the county. And then I had one more thing I wanted to add. is please don't ever stop asking questions. That's the one thing I find for our new workers is that they're either like embarrassed or they don't want to ask questions because they think that it's going to look bad if they're asking so many questions. But I personally love when workers are asking new workers are asking a lot of questions, because I rather you know get those answered than not know. It's such a huge thing, is don't ever be afraid to ask questions. You should never be afraid, just keep asking them.
Yes, and something that I wanted to add to, even though it has been already mentioned, to find an area that fits your interests. I think that what I wanted to mention too is try to think about how do you want to serve your community, right? What is the role that you want to have in your community, the impact that you want to have? Because I think the great part of working at the county is that you're able to make those changes and have that impact in the communities that you're serving. And that is a very rewarding feeling, because you're seeing the change happen in front of you. And the other thing that I wanted to share out also, and this is a more straightforward thing, is just visit the county website, review the job positions that are available. That way you can get a better understanding of what type of experience is needed, what are the different job positions that the county offers. So I would encourage you to first to ask yourself that question: what role do I want to have in the community and the impact that I want to do with the community in general in San Diego County? And visit the county website.
Thank you all for sharing your experiences and sharing your advice today. I know I even learned a couple of things to take into mind. But for our next part of our webinar, I am going to pass it over to my co-lead, Maya.
Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you all for sharing all the insight and an inside scoop to your various career paths. Now we will be asking some of the wonderful questions that were submitted ahead of time by our attendees. We do have limited time and there were many questions asked, but we're going to try to get through as many as possible. So first up, we have, what projects do you work on in your department that you are most excited for?
So I will start with that one. So currently I serve as our internship and clinical supervision coordinator. So I oversee our internship department for child and family well-being. We partner with two universities, San Diego State and Cal State San Marcos. And any intern, so the interns that we have currently are all Title IV-E recipients. So that's that stipend that I had mentioned earlier when I talked about, because I was actually a Title IV-E recipient as well. So this is how it came full circle for me, which is totally cool that now I get to help all the future Title IV-E recipients. So all those that are either receiving a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, San Diego State right now is the only one that has the bachelor's program for the Title IV-E stipend, but I get master's students from both San Diego State and Cal State San Marcos. So I work with both of them and placing them around our departments and getting them experience firsthand. And then once they graduate, because of that stipend, they come to work for us. So that's what's really cool. And I did see there was also a question in there about clinical supervision. So once they graduate with their master's in social work, they can apply for their clinical license, which is your ASW number. And I assist them with clinical supervision and coordination. So we actually offer in our department clinical supervision, where our workers can receive clinical supervision during work hours. And it's free, because typically you have to pay for your clinical supervision hours. So that's another cool project that I always that I work on with our interns. And so I also help with our new workers. So all of our new hires, I work in the same department as our new hires, which is known as SWIT. It's social worker initial training. It is 12 weeks long, and they're in a classroom setting. And so I also get to support our team with all the new workers who are starting off too. So that's kind of what my job role really entails right now. which is cool because I know typically when you think of Child Protective Services, you just think of investigations, but there's so many other different roles within our department, which is pretty cool.
So for me, some of the projects that I'm most excited about, I just love when I get out of the office and really go out and talk to people. I feel like I'm re-energized. I love hearing people's stories, and all the time I get to learn something new. So for me, that means if I'm going to go cover maybe an outreach event for our Homeless Solutions and Equitable Communities Department, and get to follow colleagues and different workers who maybe do something different than I do. So one of the stories I got to do is, following outreach workers and working with people experiencing homelessness, and getting to talk with them and seeing what they do, firsthand, and then talking to another organization that provides another service. So all of those things really just fill my bucket. I love being able to interact with people and hearing directly from them their stories and how all of this work is really contributing to what the county does for people in general. So yeah, for me, projects that excite me is whenever I get to leave the office and go do something fun.
Yes, I can go next. And yes, again, I want to go next because yes, I agree with what Fernando says. Going out to the community is something that I really enjoy. We work closely with the Office of Emergency Services and with other community-based organizations such as the Community Emergency Response Team, for example. And yesterday, just to provide an example, there was this event called the Great California Shakedown, and the state Office of Emergency Services was there. We were there. Many other community-based organizations that focus on emergency preparedness were present at the event. And they brought this large earthquake simulator. And I guess just being out in the community and informing people on how to be prepared, providing that education or listening to the community's feedback, that is very exciting, very rewarding in general. So that's one of the projects that I'm most excited about: informing, educating the community, and just passing along this message of how to be prepared for an emergency.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing a bit more about what you are so clearly passionate about. Our next question is, what advice would you give to someone who is transitioning from higher education to a career at the county?
I think that question is for me. One advice I would say is to definitely keep your resume updated. And I know this is mentioned all throughout today's webinar, but go to the government jobs website and look through the job postings and job descriptions and subscribe to those that you're interested or might qualify for, so that when those positions or lists do open up, you're able to get on top of applying for those. And then again, just staying on top of getting on the list. That's like my biggest thing. And also, again, just being very flexible. Sometimes titles like administrative analyst might seem intimidating or scary, but it's really such a broad array of things, and just being open.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing that insight. Our next question is, what advice would you give to young adults who are interested in public health and addressing social and health injustices? Can we create change within the system, such as by working in the county? So I can start it off with Annika.
Thank you so much, Maya. So with this one, I would say very much reiterating what we all had to say with like the general advice. It does apply to everyone, youth, young adult, like older adults as well. So just pretty much like taking the opportunities that come your way. But if we want to talk about more specifically adolescents and young adults, I would say really leverage your perspective. I know that the county can seem pretty daunting. It's a very long established organization. There's a lot of like rules and policies that are very much tied to it because of it being kind of like a government institution. But I would say that the county, and I think this kind of touches on one of the anonymous questions we received in the Q&A box as well. But the county does have a lot of room for your perspective, and they're actively looking for like the younger generation's perspective as well, because as we have mentioned throughout this webinar, the field of public health of the community is super, super dynamic, super versatile. And so like your perspective as like a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, 50-year-old, et cetera, like will always be different because you're focusing on issues that impact you and issues that impact your loved ones. And so I think with that as well, to answer, I believe, the second part of the question of creating change in the systems by working in the county, like to speak from my experience, like I'm 24, I've been working with the county for 3 years. So I started when I was 21. So I'm relatively young, and I did go through that like weird phase of, will I be accepted as a peer? You know, like there are people here, like I think Julia mentioned, she's been here for 13 years. And like that can be very daunting to work with someone with like that much knowledge and experience. But I have never once encountered a situation where my opinion wasn't respected and acknowledged and even applied. And so I think if you go into the county with the perspective of like, maybe you won't see this like instant monumentous change at once, you are doing your piece by providing a lot of perspective that many other people can be impacted by, as well as things that maybe our generation is a little bit more aware of, right? Like, for example, the whole topic of reducing stigma and like wanting to talk about mental health a certain way, like a lot of that got a strong push from like millennials, Gen Z, and which was obviously built from the efforts of previous generations as well. So hopefully that answers that question. And I think I'm handing it over to Sarah after this.
Yes. So my advice for anyone interested in public health and addressing social and health injustices is, exploring how programs, practices, and policies in our communities affect the health of individuals, families, and the communities. And then establishing common goals, complementary roles, and ongoing constructive relationships between public health sector, and these communities. And then being able to kind of maximize your opportunities for collaboration federally and at the state level or local level partners that's related to, for example, social determinants of health. And speaking on my behalf as like a public health professional, we want to help improve the conditions of daily life. So the circumstances in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. I believe that we can make a difference through raising awareness, especially on things like social determinants of health, asking and supporting the community, so partnering with organizations or providers, advocating for culturally and linguistically responsive services, and then looking within and examining our own biases and to be an unlikely ally. So that really was centered, that answer was really centered around public health. And to kind of piggyback off of Annika, I feel like I'm piggybacking off of Annika a lot today. But as one of the questions in the Q&A, there might be programs or initiatives or things that we may feel differently about. And that's what I love about public health is it opens up opportunities and possibilities. So I do think that there is room for change. And then to answer the second part, can we change or create change within the systems? Yes, I believe so. I'm turning 30 soon, so I will say the younger generation is definitely up and coming, and we really truly value your input, and I do believe that we can change within the system. And I will pass it over to Fernanda.
And I think Sarah and Annika said it beautifully. I think just to sum it up, I'll say that our workforce at the county really should reflect the county, right? So that means you too. It means people who are young, people who are, have more experience, people who are diverse. So it means everyone. So I think it takes a very specific approach to hiring and making sure that we are better able to serve our community because our workforce does represent our community. So all that to say is that does include you. So your perspective is important. So there are opportunities for you, and they are needed.
Thank you all so much for that great insight and advice. Guys, just really appreciate all of that. Our last question that we have, we are running a bit over time, but we just have one more, is if there are currently any internships / opportunities available in your department. Julia, I know we wanted to touch on that. If we could just really briefly let folks know how they can let you know if they're interested.
Yeah, so the way we go about getting our interns is, like I had mentioned, through San Diego State or Cal State San Marcos. So if you're a current student in the social work program receiving a bachelor's degree, you could apply for the Title IV stipend in your 4th year. Or if you're looking to go back for your master's degree, applications are now open. They just opened up for both universities. We start interviewing for the stipend typically, I think, around March. And so all it is a checkbox on the application for either of those schools. Do you want to be a Title IV stipend recipient? And that's it. And then you can get an interview with us and the universities to receive that stipend. But you have to be a recipient to start interning with us, because, like, for example, like right now I have 61 interns for this academic year. So we get a lot of interns every year. So we only have the capacity for those that are receiving the stipend. But if you want any other information, I could always put my email address in the chat box. If anyone wants to chat later about it, I can give you more details.
Thank you, Julia. That is for Julia's department, but we will be talking a bit more about other opportunities later on. So that is all the question that we have now for the pre-submitted questions. Sorry if we did not get to yours. Next, we do have Yuo, a senior human resources analyst, here to share some information on some commonly asked questions. Our first question is, what are necessary qualifications to attain a job with the county?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Yo. I've been with the county now for 12 years. So thank you all for joining us this morning. So this first question, what are necessary qualifications? Well, that really ranges depending on what the position entails. It could look like, just having a high school diploma to a master's degree or possession of certifications or licenses. So it's really important you go on our governmentjobs.com website and take a look at those minimum qualifications and any special notes or under certifications or licenses, if any of those are necessary for the position. Yeah, so that's what that looks like.
Thank you. Our next question is, what would you say the average number of years people stay with their county jobs, and is there likeliness for internal growth?
So the county has over 20,000 employees, and the current average age or the current average number of years an employee has been with the county is currently 10 years. With just a quick Google search, if you look up, what's the average number of years an employee stays at a company in the United States, well, that looks like 4.3 years for men and 3.8 years for women. So, I mean, you can see why, folks are there's a reason folks are staying with the county for 10, 20, 30 years, because we've just, folks are coming in, they want to, they either have a passion for serving the public or a specific reason, but there's obvious reasons folks are staying longer than the US average. And then let's see, is there likeliness for internal growth? Well, I would say absolutely. Personally, I've been with the county, like I said, 12 years now. I've been with in 7 different classifications, in 4 different departments, and it's been an amazing career, and I think that's one of the reasons what I tell folks all the time when I go to career fairs is that you know, if you go to a company externally, you know, there may be only so many positions that folks are vying for. Well, when you're with the county, we've got over 20 departments, and those are kind of companies, you know, within the county. And so even if you may not be able to promote within that department, you may find some other opportunity in another department, but all still under the umbrella of the county.
Right. Thank you so much. The last one is, are there currently any entry-level positions available? I know this might have been answered in the Q&A too, but just in case anybody missed it.
Yeah, so we at the county have several entry-level positions right now. We've got an office assistant position that's open with Health and Human Services. The minimum qualifications for that is a recent completion of a clerical secretarial curriculum from a community college, or 1 year recent full-time clerical admin experience. We've also got deputy sheriff cadets. You just have to be 18 years old and have obtained a high school degree or GED. And we've also got a sheriff's emergency services dispatcher trainee, which also again is 18 years old and have no past felony convictions. Also, there are student worker positions. We've got an undergraduate, graduate recruitment that's almost always available, and you can apply to it. You can then on the application select what departments you're interested in. And my tip is always, if you're going to apply for these student worker positions, maybe reach out to a department. Sometimes when you apply to these student worker positions, it really depends on if the department is in need of a student worker. And so, you know, maybe they weren't looking for a student worker at the time, but if you happen to reach out, they can, you know, possibly find, you know, a project for you to do. So that's my tip for the student worker positions. We also have a couple fellowship positions available right now. There's a multimedia fellow and a community outreach fellow with a couple of our board of supervisor offices. So check those out.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a lot of great info. If anybody does have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to Yo with the contact info that is on the screen. And yeah, now I think we can move on to our announcements. Before we wrap up, we did want to quickly share with you these opportunities that are coming up very soon. These events will be held in person at the new Southeastern LiveWell Center. October 25th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be an informational hiring fair. So come to learn about job readiness resources and the hiring process for County of San Diego jobs. Then on November 8th from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. there will be a job fair with same-day interviews and hiring. These events are hosted by another county department team. So if you have any questions about these events, please direct them to hhsa.communities@san-diego-county.ca.gov. And then lastly, the LiveWell Youth Sector will also be recruiting in the beginning of next year. So be sure to stay connected to receive updates. And then lastly, I know we just have a few more minutes, but we really appreciate it if you could complete the poll that should be launching now. Just a few short questions to help us learn where you sort of heard about this panel. And then if you could also please write in the chat what topics or what sort of events you would like to see in the future. Like Jasmine mentioned in the beginning, this is the first of a series. So we're really interested to sort of get some feedback and hear what you all would like to see. I see we have the poll going, getting answers back. Thank you all so much. Just give that a minute. Awesome, thank you all for the feedback. That is all for today. Thank you everybody for joining us. Huge thank you to the panelists and joining us here today. And for all the attendees for listening in, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at livewellyouth@sdcounty.ca.gov and stay connected by following our social media pages where we will post any future opportunities and events. Hope you all have a great rest of your Friday and a relaxing weekend.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
think so.
Bye, everyone.